Carolyn.
Let's get started then, since we do have right. So let's call the meeting to order at 6:02.
I'll make a motion to call it to order.
Sounds perfect.
Oh, right. We don't do that, do we?
No,
I wasn't prepared to write that down, so I'm skipping that part. Okay.
But
It
it
is
is
kind of a lax Robert rules around here. Okay, do we want to have a public comment period, or did public want to wait till it came up in business? I have Jim Quiglione and Christine, who I assume is not that name, but does anyone have a public comment at this time?
Yeah. Can Christine identify themselves for the minutes, please?
Sorry, my name's Amos Martin.
Great.
Thank you.
Can you spell
welcome.
your last name? Martin?
Martin.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Carolyn, I don't know if you're freezing or you're just very, very still, but I think your camera keeps freezing up.
I actually don't see,
There's
and we
your-
can't hear you either.
Okay, I'm back, I hope. I was
Yeah,
frozen.
you're
I think.
back. Yep.
Okay,
Okay,
you're
great.
back. Yep.
Sorry, additional items to the agenda? Okay, great. And then review and approve minutes from February 10th, 2021. Is there a motion?
all
I'll
motion.
motion to approve, or I'll second then.
Great, all those in favor? Okay, the hand
Aye.
raisings have it, so we'll say that's approved. And then any correspondence? I don't know if we had a few emails we can discuss in the flow, I think would be easiest. But nothing, no specific new things that aren't already on the agenda. Okay, great. So for old business then, the first thing is Conservation Commission membership. I have no new updates. Does anyone else have an update about a member in the works? We have a spot for one. Okay, keep it in the back burner. Someone snags the library. You're like, I have this great thing you should join. Okay, next thing is meeting.
Oh, you're frozen again. I wonder if we all need to mute. Most of you are muted.
We can all mute, or I think what's usually more helpful is if we stop our videos to see if that might help. Carolyn. Now you're back. We all stopped our videos. Hopefully that would help, maybe.
Let me just put this text in the chat. There we go. Let me see if I can plug in better. Okay, so I've got this text for us here from the Act 78 update. And basically we can hold the meetings remote or in person. And we don't have to have a physical spot if we don't want to have a physical spot. So I just want to let you know that we don't have to have someone in Holly Hall as of January 23rd of this year. We didn't have to. So that's good to know. And then I was thinking about future meeting spots and was wondering if we wanted to do more in person or in a park, etc. And with the videos off, I have no idea if anyone can hear me or not, or if anyone's nodding along or if I've frozen. This is
We can
weird.
hear you.
We can
Plugged
hear
in
you.
now. I'm plugged
You're
in.
good.
This will be better.
Okay. We could hear all of that.
Oh, good. Okay. I'm like, am I just monologuing into the void here?
I kind of it would be in favor for what it's worth of going back to meeting outside at the rec center there again, once the weather's all right for it. I thought that was real nice to be back around people.
Yeah. Do we want to start that with our April meeting? Or do you want to wait till May? Do we want to go in the conference room we were traditionally meeting in for 20 years before COVID? What are our thoughts?
Outside was so nice during the summer, at least. Like,
Yeah,
it was really nice to be out in a park while we were talking about parks. Felt right.
definitely. I was thinking
April-
when we do our calendar, we could even talk about like maybe some of our summer meetings. We could have like a work time, but at the meeting kind of thing at different places would be nice
Uh-huh.
too.
I think April for an outdoor meeting is optimistic.
Okay.
Don't
So
you?
let's do, should we do Zoom for next meeting for April and then May we'll try to go outside? Does that sound good?
Yeah,
Sure.
good.
Okay. And that sounds great. Helen, could you write that down so I'll remember?
I
it?
am writing that down. Zaley, I don't know how you do this. You look so calm. Actually, you can't see me right now, but I'm like, how do you keep up with all of this? I got it. Got it. So April meeting will be on Zoom and then.
Yeah, and
May
you can
we'll meet-
be, you can, fairly summarize it. It doesn't have to be perfect because we do have the
Yes.
video too. So
Yeah,
And
I
so
usually
May-
just for myself and then complete the sentence later.
Okay. We want to meet at the rec field in May, at the picnic bench there. Is that the idea?
yeah, I think
Yeah.
that was nice.
Okay,
It has a
pretty
roof.
work.
It has a roof in case it's raining, so that's good.
Yeah.
great. Okay.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay, any other thoughts on meeting modality and or location?
So the
Oh,
one advantage to having, sorry, I will put my camera back on so you know that I'm about to say something. One of the advantages of meeting on Zoom is that we don't have to be in town. So for instance, right now, we wouldn't have two of our valuable members because they're in the Midwest. And it frees us up to move about a bit more, which I think has been nice. At the same time, I recognize that it is really nice to meet all together physically in a space. And I don't really know how to weigh those two. Maybe every other meeting on Zoom, or I don't know. At each meeting, we ask, can people commit to coming to meet in person? Or is the next meeting one we should Zoom because someone's going to be in
Yeah.
somewhere else?
And that sounds like a good idea. I also think that once we are in the conference room, which was sort of the status quo in the before COVID era, once I think we go back into that meeting modalities, like our normal space, that now has the owl technology in it, which was pretty slick. Alex and I had a meeting in there and it swivels around and looks at you. It's pretty seamless for the people in the room to interact with the people on the screens. That was pretty cool, honestly, in terms of bringing people in. So it's more fun and sometimes topical to be outside for this particular group, but I do see the appeal of being in the conference room where we have remote members or public that wants to join as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, why don't we try for, we can do Zoom and we'll see how people feel about numbers if we want to do a physical space or not for April. And then maybe we can do the in the park for May and we'll sort of make a plan from there as we see how things go. Would that be all
Right.
right?
Yep.
As long as we publicly announce the meeting, enough days in advance, then we're allowed to have it wherever, as long as it's publicly announced and publicly available. So I think we'll be okay in that regard. Okay, cool. So is that everything for that? Okay, great. And then let's move on to Bristol Trail Network. We can continue some discussion there. It's when we left our conversation last time, we had some concerns from the public about the Bristol Trail Network and the Rec Club and some of their projects and concerns about adjoining properties and things. And so we said that we would help them get in touch with the people at the Rec Club and the responsible parties. And then we also said that we would look into the concerns about wetlands in the area and like wetland health. And so there's been movement on both of those things. My understanding is that the group has met now. It seems that there is some forward movement going there. So I'm glad we were able to help facilitate some of those conversations. I just took an email introduction to make sure everyone was on the same page. There's also going to be a walk with a wetland specialist. Edison County's DEC's representative, Zapata Courage, is involved to do a walk of that site. There is no formally recognized wetland at that site by the state of Vermont. However, she has agreed to come out and survey the spot with Porter Knight. And so I think we can decide if we think that we want to be involved and have someone along for that walk as well.
Do you know when that is? When that is
It'll be
expected?
once it melts. You can't really do a lot with wetlands under the
Okay.
snow, right? So, yeah, it'll be sometime in spring. So we should decide if like we're going to be involved in that. And then I think we should also decide how involved we should be as a division of the town. I'd asked Valerie about the matter, and that she said that she had sort of considered this to be a private matter between not-for-profit and private property owners and not a town concern. And so I think that, so I just want you to know that. And I think those are talking points I want to start with for sort of summary of where we're at with this. And I want to see if anyone on the commission wanted to join in before we got some public comment. So does anyone want to say anything on that matter from the commission at this time?
I think it does make sense for us to at least to, for instance, have a representative on that walk with Zapata, for instance, and have at least have our own understanding of what the arguments are and whether or not we feel like we should weigh in. I think, obviously we have a good rapport with the Bristol Trail Network and would be in a good position to make a case to them if we feel that, as the Conservation Commission, that there are conservation impacts of the trail being there. I think we ought to have a hand in that, although it's not our thing. It's they're all the concerns that have been voiced are sort of at least adjacent to our scope, and I think we ought to be aware of what's going on and have an opinion on it.
Anyone else? Would anyone else like to volunteer to be that person on the walk?
I would love to go on the walk. I don't
know.
if I need
Zapata's
to
really
represent us, but I would love to see. I don't even know where it is, what it looks like, but
No. I went on a site visit with her once and it was really cool. She knows everything. It's awesome. So yeah, she's fantastic. So okay, great. Helen, I appreciate your help with that. That's great.
anybody, but if anyone else wants to come, obviously, I don't.
Well, we can
have
see
to
what the
go,
dates
but-
when we know them too, like maybe you're out of town or something. We'll figure that out. But thank you for that. And then any other thoughts from the commission about that before we open for public comment?
No, it does seem like we need to see what she says before we know whether or not we need to be involved, right? Or like,
Right. Well, if it is a wetland, there are different policies. There's different ways you would build a trail in a wetland. So even a class 1 wetland that's the highest level of protection in the state of Vermont still can have primitive hiking trails on it, right? So as long as things are done the right way, those two land uses aren't incompatible according to the state of Vermont. So I think we good to keep an eye, sort of an eye on things from a conservation perspective, but technically wetland wouldn't preclude hiking, for example, if it was done in in the checklisted sort of way. Yeah, Kristen.
Yeah, I guess I'm leaning a little more toward feeling like could be a private matter between the Bristol Trail Network and the landowners, not only the landowners where that trail would be proposed, but also the adjacent landowners. And I would feel strongly myself if a public trail was being planned for my neighbor's property or my own property. So I totally sympathize with the concerns of the landowners that are adjacent to this proposed use. Personally, I feel like there should be a way for maybe our role would be to facilitate the dialogue, as you've already done, Carolyn, by connecting the parties. And I would hope that there could be consideration of other trail locations. I wonder, I'd like to ask Porter the question, whether that particular trail location is necessary, or maybe there could be some alternatives in order to address the concerns of the adjacent landowners. For example, I wonder if that little spur of the trail could just simply follow the public road and sidewalk to connect over to Plank Road.
Yeah. So where's a request for a BCC representative to come to the next meeting between these groups? And I wasn't sure. Would you suggest then that we had a presence there, or that we didn't? I guess I wasn't sure where you were falling on that line.
Yeah, I mean, I could be convinced otherwise through dialogue, I suppose, but my first reaction is that it's a private matter, and that if some members of this commission wanted to certainly be a part of that meeting, I don't see why that shouldn't be. It is important to do, and should be,
Sure.
be done if they wanted to attend as persons that had an interest, the citizens of the town that had an interest in the
Yeah.
Bristol Trail Network.
Right. Yeah. I don't know that it would be appropriate for the town to have a presence in that, though. Right.
Right.
Jim.
Oh,
Jim has a
Jim, would you like
question.
to say something?
Yes, is any of this trail part of public property, and do they receive any monies from the town for this trail? And does the Conservation Commission have any monies coming from the town? That would open it up to being not a private organization. Just my thought, that's all.
Right, no, that's a good question. There are segments of the trail network that do cross through town-owned land. For example, the segment on the Bristol Coffin Factory Trail, that's town-owned land. The Conservation Commission does not at all receive any revenues regarding the Bristol Trail Network. It's all administered by the private Bristol Rec Club. And I'm not sure if I've remembered all your questions, Jim.
Well, my concern was if any part of the trail is on public property, it's a continuation of the trail. So the whole trail has to do with public property, doesn't it?
I
So-
don't know. I'm not a legal person. I wouldn't know that.
I understand that,
the
but
answer to that
They
question.
they should try to cooperate with the landowners as much as they can.
They being the Bristol Trail Network.
Yes.
Yes, I would agree with that. And where there are concerns expressed by adjacent landowners, my personal opinion would be maybe there's an alternative trail spur that could be located that wouldn't have concerns expressed by neighboring landowners.
Great.
That's good. Thank you so much.
I was thinking, would anyone else like to chime in, or should we bring in some of those adjacent landowners to the conversation now? All right, great. Amos or Jim and Brenda, would anyone like to speak now?
Yeah, thanks again for taking the time to hear this out. I'm glad to hear Zapata is involved. I was reading a lot of meeting minutes of you guys and other boards and stuff. And back in 2017, she was involved with the Beaver Meadows project up in the upper notch and addressing some 400 feet change there. So that's good. Christine did a lot of research. I'm apparently too busy to really get behind the computer because I'm on the road a lot. But we were in touch with Andrew LaRoe. I'm sure you know who that is at the Aspen County Regional Planning Commission.
Oh, yes, yes,
Correct.
yes.
And another gentleman, Adam Luigi.
Yeah.
So we found that there was 4 designated wildlife crossings on Plank Road. Unfortunately, the study was done in 2003 And those 4 crossings were at the old Virgins Waterworks property, now known as the Watershed property. Our concerns is that demographics change, wildlife goes where people aren't, and things shift. So I forwarded on a bunch of photos to you, right, Carolyn?
Oh, yes, yes, I received those, yeah.
That was just 4 or 5 photos. I have hundreds of photos here of fawns, bear, deer, the foxes. We had a gray fox one year. And so we talked to Adam, and he said, true, 20 years is a long time to go without a study. There's grants involved, getting trail cameras and public input, which is great. So it brings me back to the question that the trail was established and put in by the new property owners in the trail network. Great. I'm not anti-trail. I go hiking all the time. I'm in the woods a lot during the fall and foliage time. And knowing that animals don't like people, they shift. So I'm afraid that shift is going to happen here if this trail goes in. And we will lose that natural feeling that where we live out here, we're not in the village out here. We consider ourselves out in the country a little bit. So, you know, we love seeing all that wildlife. And if you think putting a trail in is you're going to see wildlife, you're going to just see squirrels. So I hope that we can get the study done, and take a look at what's here. Jim and Brenda, I think, are going to start a list of everything they've seen and what we see and when we see it. I'm going to stick my cameras back out now that the batteries will last and not freeze up, and the cameras can take good quality pictures again. Because right now, unfortunately, when they cut the trail in, I had cameras out. I had 1 photo of 11 deer and 1 photo in our backyard. And the next week, the trail was put in, and there are 0 photos, only of coyotes. All the deer left, because deer are they're a creature of habit. And if they see something that's not in there, you know, if it's not normal, they just scatter, they leave. They don't like it until they get comfortable again to come back in. And that comfortableness is going to go if a trail comes in. But again, I'm not anti-trail. I just think that we're going to lose a valuable part of Bristol right
Great, thank you for that.
Yeah,
Jim and
if I
Brendan?
could- yeah, just to support that.
Oh, could I just ask, Jim and Brenda, did you have last names as well? So we can get those for our minutes?
Yeah, we do actually, amazingly enough. Yeah, I'm Jim Lanau, Lienau, and Brenda's Brenda Myrick, Myrick. And
Helen, did you get that?
They're
Oh.
in last month's minutes as well.
that's right. There we were. Yep, very good. Good.
Awesome,
I
just
always-
want to make sure.
I
Great,
always
thank you, go
appreciate
ahead.
the minute taker. That is a thankless job. I've been on a couple of boards myself. So anyway, getting back to the wildlife point, it is so pertinent. And in the research that Christine did, also across the street, which has been designated as one of those forest blocks that is a connector, the idea of wildlife connectors. And certainly that is what we see here, is that there's a flow from across the street to the north of us. And there's a lot of land that's conducive there that isn't that developed. And everything comes through. We spent 26 years living in Lincoln, and we had previously actually lived in the village, and I knew this area from back then in the early 80s. But moving back here on Plank Road, I was really astounded that the only animals that we didn't hear, see, or experience were moose. Everything else was still here in this tiny little microcosm behind the village. And it's incredibly unique. And, you know, I think wildlife is continually put down on the list. You know, this short little connector to basically nowhere would just eradicate that whole little jewel of a microcosm there. So, you know, I think Amos's point that a study hasn't been done in almost 20 years, it's time to look at wildlife first. We have so many hiking trails around here. We do this every day. That's what we go out with our dog and ski and hike all around this county, and there's no lack. And as Amos said, you know, we won't even go to the watershed anymore. It's too crazy there. There's just dogs roaming everywhere off leash. And but when you walk through there in the winter, there are no tracks other than squirrel tracks. It's just, and it's a huge, beautiful ecosystem, and there's nothing in it because they're freaked out. You know, they can't handle that pressure. So why force this little bit of a trail in here and kick wildlife out once again? That's our point. So that's what we're speaking for. And if that is something that you guys are concerned with, we'd love to see you help facilitate that. And just think about that as far as, you know, how we proceed with the environment. You know, the wildlife is not given much credit or help at this point. So just speaking up for it right here in this little space in the village of Bristol, just like to say it, you know, just really let's try to preserve this if we can. Anyway, that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, where do we go from here? I know that's you know, we're gonna have sounds like Zapata Courage is gonna go do that walk in that area. And I know that she's an expert in some of these things. That would be great. And it sounds like you've been in contact with Andrew LaRoe, which is at the Edison County Regional Planning Commission. So that's good as well. And then beyond that, I'm not sure what role exactly we should have or can have. I really don't know the answers to that. People can chime in. Alex knew a lot about wildlife. I don't know. But otherwise we can, yeah.
Sorry, Amos had brought up the idea of survey locating wildlife crossings and so on. It does seem like that was what you were saying, Amos, right? That particular survey had not been done for 20 years.
Yeah, it was done 2003, and it concentrated. It sounded like Plank Road, and they found 4 spots down by the old waterworks property, and that was way before they put in the walking trails. I actually lived in New Haven on that next intersection on North Street. That's where I grew up, so I was very familiar with that area. And so it was interesting to see that study was there and those crossings were there, and I knew those crossings were there because I grew up there, and they're not there anymore. So it's I think a null and void document to go back and refer to if you're looking to do trails and stuff and find spots that are safe, and you're using old documents and not doing some real true legwork of asking residents, you know, hey, what do you see? What's going on here? Is this a good idea? Then, so these things need to be redone periodically and checked on, and because things change. Beavers can move in, dam stuff up, and make new wetlands. It's not. You can look on a biofinder map on ANR and say, oh, that's that's only wetland here. Well, you go out there, holy crap, it's extended to 300 feet. So
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah, it's like a very useful step that we might be able to take is to figure out how, if we can facilitate the refreshing of such surveys. I don't know, as you said, there's grant money involved and so on, and I don't know how easy that is to make happen on a short timeline, but I think, speaking as a private citizen, you're totally right. That's a step that should be taken here. Like habitat continuity is important in these kind of fragmented areas like this. And if these are critical corridors we're talking about, then we got to know if we're messing with them before endorsing or building trails through them, especially trails that bring dogs and bikes and things that do drive wildlife away like crazy.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that is one role that this commission could play as a public commission serving the town, is that we could coordinate some grant applications to conduct an updated wildlife crossing study and bring some resources into the town to do that. I know in the past we've had folks like Sue Morse come in and teach a tracking class. That was many, many years ago, but maybe now is the time to do that again. And to the extent that that data collection would help in this particular situation, all the better. I think we could work through the Regional Planning Commission to source some grant funding to support an updated wildlife crossing study for the town.
I think that'd be very useful, not just in this particular instance, but that's important information for the town to have in terms of town-wide, not just in terms of this particular little spur.
Sure. Well, there's been so much construction recently, right? I mean, there's houses going up all over on Lower Notch. There's that new business park going in, right? So there's been a lot of things shifting, right?
Yeah.
All over.
yeah, and things are going to shift, and every year they're going to shift with all these projects going on, and them building on Notch Road there. That's a lot of new buildings up through there. So, but I should point out in Adam or Andrew's email is that the grant deadline is April 8th. So that's right around the corner. So it's probably, for getting a grant for the equipment, I guess that's what it's for. But I have plenty of trail cameras and web cameras and stuff that I can set up for here that we can set up and try. And I'm willing to do that. So.
Can you remind me what the April 8th deadline is for? What?
Hold on. There are some small grants available through the Association of Vermont Conservation Commissions. The grant deadline is coming up soon on April 8th for things like wildlife cameras. If the town has a conservation fund, they can hire a consultant to work on an update.
Just logistics wise, our next meeting is April 7th. So it would be feasible, Carolyn, for us to, for members to pull together a grant application and then have the commission review it during our April 7th meeting for submittal on April 8th.
If someone wanted to do that, that would be fine. I will not have time to do that by April 7th, but if someone wanted to volunteer to do that, that would be fine. It's cutting it awfully close. But if someone was able to, that'd be great. I can put on the agenda. Would anyone like to take the lead on doing that?
Yeah, well, I'm saying we. We here at 14 Pleasant will feel that this is important and will finagle each other into doing it.
I don't know the first thing about a grant application.
I was kind of hoping you did.
We could
would
put
anyone
Alex.
be able to guide us in a direction?
The VACC grants are quite straightforward and simple. We are, as a conservation commission, we are a member of the Vermont Association of Conservation Commissions. We pay our member dues every summer.
Right.
And we've gotten these grants before in the past. They're small amounts, and therefore it's small effort to put in the grant application. So I'd be happy to help guide you.
Yeah, that'd be great. I just somewhere to start, a link, an old
Yeah.
one, something.
Exactly.
I didn't mean to totally volunteer you for this. I think this is something we should do.
I have the link. I have the link right here.
Perfect.
Great.
Yeah.
I'll type it into onto the comments here in the chat room.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
yeah, grant writing. I'm on the fire department. If you didn't notice the stuff in the background, so grant writing, you just need tax ID numbers and things from the town and addresses. Basically, is primarily what you need. So
Okay, we can handle that.
I think too, it's one thing to get cameras and to take pictures, but to figure out what the process is to do this the right way. I don't know if there's someone with the DEC or if that was something regional commission, like to go from to taking photos of wildlife, or how many studies you need of trail crossings across to get to like a moose crossing sign. I don't know what those steps all are. I don't even know who to ask, honestly.
Yeah, no, I think it can run the gamut. I mean, so the past study, 2003, was done by, if I remember correctly, Lewis Creek Association, a watershed group, and they kind of coordinated those efforts of volunteers to monitor tracks in their neighborhoods. And so it could be just simply a matter of gathering the citizens who are already out there tracking wildlife, or having wildlife cams out in their backyards, and just collecting all that information into one central location. And we could maybe work with Andrew LaRoe or John Van Heusen at the Addison County Regional Planning Commission to map those crossings and so forth. But it can be a fairly big undertaking. So
Right.
we may just want to revisit this at the next meeting and talk about strategies for guiding a wildlife crossing study and seeking funding sources. We'll need more than what the VACC can provide.
From Andrew's email here, he said the town of Salisbury has been very active in doing this right now. So I don't know if you guys have any contacts that you could reach out.
Yep.
Or
Yeah,
I'm sure
Heidi.
Andrew can put you in touch, but
Yeah, Heidi Willis over there is on the commission, and so is Jim Andrews, the famous, he does a lot of herpetology, snakes, rats, I'm sorry, not rats, critters, salamanders. He does a lot of that.
It's like
activity.
herpetology stuff, right?
Herpetology, yeah, he's on their conservation commission. So that would be one way for us to speed up our learning curve a little bit, reach out to them and understand how they've pulled it off in their town, and we could simulate that here in Bristol.
I think ultimately a wildlife crossing study could be a really nice idea, because it'd be something we're thinking about broadly. This would tie in with some of our the town plan goals as well, right? As sort of like a big idea, and that's great. In terms of the immediacy though, I don't know that a wildlife crossing is incompatible, much like a wetland, with primitive trail building though. I don't know that that is something that, this is like a new idea, I feel, compared to the private issue we're seeing with the landowners, the adjacent landowners, the landowners, and the Bristol Recreation Club, right? That almost seems like that might be something separate, or it's something that we would need to know more about before we would get involved in that direction, even if there was wildlife crossing. I don't know what that, like, how do those dovetail? I don't know enough about it.
It might be useful information for the Bristol Trail Network to have, frankly. I mean, for Porter's own information and planning these things out, and with this trail in particular, I imagine she'd probably, she and they would be perfectly inclined to not interrupt wildlife travel corridors either.
Sure.
Might be just useful for them to have, even if they're not incompatible. I think she's sensitive to that issue as well. And would probably be good information for.
Yeah.
So just
Um,
to help Alex and Kristen and maybe Zaley, what proposal will be written by April 7th? What will be requested?
I think we're gonna look into the possibility of writing a grant application to VACC that is due on April 8th. I don't know that we ultimately decided that we'll submit to them. We need to read through what the requirements are and what the expectations are and understand if this is something we can do and want to do.
Right. And in terms of open meeting laws, then we'll be able to discuss that proposal and review it on the
Correct.
7th before submitting it on the 8th, if it's direction that that subgroup has decided to move in at that time. Like maybe you go like,
Right.
oh, this is what we want. This is too much. We're too busy. And then we move on to the next opportunity from there.
Right.
And we'll make that call then on the 7th, depending on how things are going. Because it is really quick to turn that around.
Yeah.
I mean, I need 2 weeks for a recommendation letter. Like this is a whole grant. So
Yeah.
And then did we want to invite Porter to speak at the April meeting for updates about the trail for spring and summer 2022 plans? Hear about thoughts on Plank Road. Would you be interested in that? She had offered in one of her email to me.
In my view, it might make sense for the walk with Zapata Courage to have happened before she comes.
Yeah. There
meet
was
so
also,
that-
I think, there was the property line issue as well. I think we talked about in the last meeting. So maybe after that survey has happened as well, would be an opportune time.
Yeah.
Do we have any dates on the survey?
So great. So we'll wait on that and we'll sort of see where we're at, and then we can invite her to come as appropriate. That sounds great. So then, in terms of this conversation, to wrap this up, because there are other things we need to talk about. Does anyone have anything else we need to talk about with this? I think so. For now, I think that we will not have an official presence in the meetings, but if someone would like to go as a citizen, of course, they're welcome to. Is what I'm hearing, and then we'll have someone go with the Zapata DEC walk in that location, and then people will also be thinking about animals and wildlife crossings, and possibly putting a VACC grant for the next time, or at least start pursuing those ideas if that's not enough time. That adequately wrap up what we discussed? Okay, great. Well, thank you for coming and keeping this our attention on this issue. And with that, I think we'll move on to our parks update. We're going to be a little crunched for time, so let's just try to be cognizant of that.
If we leave, will you still have your forum?
Oh, no, you can leave the
Not your
forum.
members. Okay,
Thank you. Bye.
thank you guys. Thanks for everything.
So we're going to move to parks update. Alex, did you have updates on that? Jono, thanks for joining us, by the way.
Yeah, so nothing major. I did want to use this time though to kind of focus on a future sort of volunteer workday Sycamore Park discussion, maybe, if that's all right.
Yeah, I'd put that in my brain under create calendar, but we can talk about that now. That's fine. And we'll just make sure we put that day on the calendar.
Right. Yeah. So for this date on the calendar, the list is pretty much still the same as when I initially made it. The issue is probably though that we'll need to bring more bird boxes, and the polls are the polls. Like if I don't think it's worth getting more, we just might have to try to salvage some of the ones that are kind of like iffy.
'Cause, I believe Alex Smith, did you buy some of those posts already? Is
I
that
don't
right?
remember what all those cedar poles were doing in my yard. For like 3 I knew I bought them for something.
Right, yeah. And same thing with the bird boxes. Jono still has those.
Yeah,
that right?
that I do, and I'm trying to guess somewhere in the vicinity of 20, give or take.
Right.
Sounds like we have an ample amount.
Yeah. So yeah, those are the two sort of main construction type things. The other parts or the other bullet points on that list include things like redoing the kiosk board thing in Sycamore. So that's just kind of supplies, like maybe new cork, and ahead of time printing out a few new maps that aren't sun damaged or water damaged. So that's fairly minor. And then I mentioned before in a previous meeting, the Pollinator Gardens kind of need a little bit of TLC as far as writing the fence posts and maybe replacing some of those with metal versions as opposed to plastic versions. And then the last thing would be some log removal. There's a bench at Sycamore Park. So like if you go from the parking lot immediately to the river and kind of down the trail a little bit, there's a bench right near the river, right? Popular picnic spot. A tree fell that was dead, but it didn't hit anything. So it's down and it's kind of in the way. It's too big for me to move. I've tried without cutting it, and so I don't have a chainsaw. The rec department doesn't have a chainsaw or anything like that. And so these volunteer days would be an opportunity for someone, if they feel comfortable, to bring their own equipment and then just basically buck this log up so we can like get it out of the way. And there's about 3 more of the very same situation just on the trail. So this one that I just mentioned is off trail, but it's in a popular spot, and there's 3 others that are on the hiking trail. That shouldn't take long at all, but kind of requires that.
What's the diameter, Alex, of some of these logs? I've got a chainsaw. You said it won't take long. What's your estimate?
Yeah, diameter wise, probably less than 12 inches.
All right, that's pretty straightforward then.
Yeah,
Got
nothing.
one, and I'm happy to tackle that with you, John.
Great.
Cool.
Have
Yeah, that'd be
changed-
great. One last thing as well, there's like remnants of the initial wood chip pile there at Sycamore. So moving that, I think the best option is honestly just to basically put another layer of wood chips on the current pollinator garden. In the late fall, there was a lot of tall grass kind of like growing up around the edges. And we had talked about kind of making a bit more of a substantial path so that people could walk around the garden. So kind of keep the overgrowth stuff at bay. And that just makes it quicker. We can, with a couple of wheelbarrows, again, probably knock that out in a day with several hands. So yeah, those are the main ones. I feel like I can share this list again if people want to see it, and either, again, like we kind of mentioned, put names on certain items and things that people would like to or feel comfortable doing, and then just pick a date. So yeah.
I
also
wonder
we're gonna talk
if
one.
the apple tree potential pruning, when Helen and I had a visit, if that would fit in with your workday, afternoon, morning, or full day. I don't know how it's going to shape up, but that may or may not be worth getting to for this this meeting today. But if I do exit, and if Helen stays on, she's pretty versed in, because we both were out there together.
Jenna, are you going to leave in 8 minutes? Is that correct?
Well, like both of these, the wetlands was somewhat, germane to the Bristol Trails Network. So it was very technical. It was still going on. I left that to jump in here. And I did see that Helen said that it's recorded. So I don't feel that I want to jump in right away, but yeah, I would probably.
That's fine. I would like to talk to you specifically about one of the agenda items, so I thought maybe we could jump to that before you leave
Sure.
is all. So about the Sycamore Park though, so you have a long list. That sounds great. Maybe we should talk about scheduling that now, or do you want to do that later on when we're going to schedule other things too? Does anyone have any strong feelings about that? Any feelings at all about that, frankly? Yeah, Helen.
Let's do it now, since Jono's here, and
Okay,
just one more voice, and when we
that
can.
sounds good. And then since you're here as well, we're talking about Sycamore Park. Did you want to talk about the apple trees briefly? We could always revisit it, but if you had something you want to jump in about maybe how long it would take, or if it's possible or worthwhile. It's still Sycamore Park, so I think that's fine.
Are you talking to Jono or Alex?
Either anyone who wants to talk about apple trees can talk about apple trees.
I'll just, as far as the scheduling, one of the summary thoughts was that if we're thinking about the idea of apple production, we would want to do that certainly before there's leafing out and flowering and so on. So the sooner the better, given that, we're almost into the middle of March. However, that might not be as good a time for some of the other projects. So I guess that's what should be weighed.
It might just depend on whether there's snow on the ground, right? Otherwise, there's really no reason we couldn't do the other stuff unless the mulch is frozen, but it's a pretty shallow little mound of it, right? So it should thaw pretty quickly.
Yeah,
Another
I
way to
agree.
think about it is that, maybe it's 2 days with the apple trees being, they're above the snow, and, just some reasonable weather would be good. And then the other projects that Alex has the list of could be, a nicer day, possibly in April. I just think for the benefit of the apple trees, sooner is better.
It is true, if it's a long list, it might be nice to break it up. Could do, Alex could decide which things should be prioritized on an earlier time, like now, within the next week or two, and then we could also have another one as it warms up. And I don't know.
What if I did one of those polls where you can say like what time you can meet, and we can do that for the trees for something sooner than later? Would that be a good start?
Sure.
Okay, great. I'll do that.
I don't think we really need 10 people out there pruning the apple trees. I mean, I'm not sure that there's actually enough work for 10 people unless everyone has a ladder and loppers.
Yeah.
I think it could take 3 people 3 hours and we'd be done.
Oh, less than 3 hours, I think.
Yeah, Alex and I went out sort of skiing around there the other day, and we noticed that we took a look at the apple trees just because we were right next to them. And yeah, it's like everything can be done with hand tools. It shouldn't take too long. So could
how would you like to proceed?
couple something else on the list, maybe.
So
if there's
how do you want to proceed? Should I send out a poll, or did you want to just, people want to volunteer right now and be like, we'll just do it on next Sunday? What would you prefer?
Well, I feel as though if you sent out a poll, it would almost have to be 2 polls. And one would be, who's free for 3 hours to prune apple trees and maybe fix the pollinator garden fence? Because those are both pretty reasonable small jobs.
I think we
And
could
then-
simplify it a little bit further. Let's say if I'm interested and any others that are interested in pruning the apple trees, that we communicate between, a group of 3 or 4. And it seems like it's a lot more involved for the workday, which with Alex's list, and that would require a doodle poll.
Sure.
Cool.
So I am
sounds good.
interested in both projects. I will put myself out there for the apple trees and say sometime after the middle of the month, the 15th to the 30th. And anyone else who would want to be part of that group, we can, as Helen and I did. It took us a little bit, but we found a good time to get out there together. And I think within 15 days, we could probably do that with a little bit larger group of 3 or 4.
Okay, so maybe let's just get an email list going and people can comment and say if they want to help and if they're available at that time. Does that make sense? Yes,
Yes.
great. Thank you, Helen. Good. Okay.
Jono, are you saying after April? Tell me what you're.
No,
when
I
you're
was
planning
saying
for.
that, so the middle of the month, the 15th, about a week from now,
March.
to the end of the month, I think would be ideal. And so that gives us 2 weeks essentially to coordinate and get out there. It's in like a lion, out like a lamb, but we'll have probably more than likely a nice enough day, just when you and I went in February, to walk out there to just, enjoy the time too. So.
Great. And then Alex and I we'll work on an email with a list of things and a poll to say, when can we make this happen? And then once we have a date, maybe we can invite out some school groups or some Eagle Scouts or something. I don't know, right? Like, see if we can get some other help out there. The Trail Network people, they put in the Pollinator Garden. Maybe they can help do some other work and that's
Right.
as well, right? So
Yeah.
we'll see what we can get once we set a date. I think would be great. We'll set a date for us and then we'll invite others to join on that day. That sounds a great plan. Now I think later in spring, like you said. Sounds good. I was wondering if we could skip ahead while Jonna was here and talk about the request from the Bristol Town Committee, item I. Would that be all right? Okay, great. This is what I thought sounded like an initiative that Jono had a while ago, and I was interested to see what he thought about it. So there's a request from the Bristol Town Committee that Linda Andrews chairs. They would like to hold a Bristol Climate Change Forum on Wednesday, April 13th. At 7 p.m. And I have this information I'll put in the chat from her about that. And so she wants to have a Bristol Democratic Committee would like to put on a Bristol Climate Change Forum. We would like the Bristol Energy, Conservation and Planning Commissions to present the activities that they have done and are currently doing and plans for the future, all on the lines of climate change. I know that Jono had been really excited about trying to do something like this a few months ago. And so I was wondering if you wanted to be a volunteer or the volunteer to work with this. I know that sounded, I just thought of you when she asked. I remembered you wanted to do climate change something.
I do think it's very, very important. I did see something, I think, on Front Porch Forum, but I wasn't as aware. I mean, I would be involved one way or another. And if it would be helpful to be a liaison for the Conservation Commission, I think I could probably act in that capacity.
Yeah, she asked for a liaison from each of those 3 committees and really wanted to have the meeting tonight. And I said that we had our meeting tonight and we could not send a representative. And then she wanted to move it to the 9th. And I said, we can't move it to March 9th. That's before the meeting. And I requested she move it after. And then they did move it to April 13th because they wanted to include our commission, but I wanted to make sure we talked about it in an open forum. So that's why they've even waited and we waited. And so that's what's happening. So I just want to know if anyone is interested in helping with this. Maybe John, I don't want to put him on the spot. I just remember we had a climate change agenda item for a while there that you
Yeah, I'm excited because, we were potentially going to try and collaborate with just say the Energy Committee, but this seems at a higher level and unto its own to really just garner a lot more recognition for the efforts. So
Yeah.
I think it's
Jono,
exciting.
are
So
you
you're saying
free?
the first inaugural is the 13th now?
I'm not sure if it's the inaugural or the only. I'm really not positive about this
Okay.
endeavor. But they're also asking to have someone present on the activities that have been done, currently doing, in future plans. I don't know if you want to do that or if you want help with that, if someone else wanted to be involved with that. There's an opportunity there as well.
Well, I would defer to Kristen as our historical knowledge of,
We also have town reports spanning from 2003 through 2001. And so I did send those to Linda Andrews as well and told her that she's free to look at those and look for some historic information because I didn't think we could go to the meeting originally. Yeah.
So
Kristen.
is she, can I ask, is she, like, we've done a lot of activities, but are they looking for activities that are focused on energy
Climate change.
and climate change?
Climate Change Forum. And this is, yeah, that's all I really know about it.
What have we done with respect to climate change?
Well, we
Other
could
than not
we
build
could
on all the
include-
lands?
Yeah, we could include the conservation of river corridors, which can sequester carbon.
Same as the Gateway, right?
The gateway, and management of, or maintenance of those forested lands and farmlands as carbon sequestration opportunities.
so those are conservation projects, which are, yeah, I see.
But anyhow, I just wanted to know who wanted to participate. Jono, if you want to do it, if anyone else wants to join you, that's great. I'm gonna throw Jono down as the liaison for this, because it sounds like you are interested. So I can put you in touch with her on that.
But I think back to Helen's point, so much of what relates to climate change does more come under the heading of the Energy Committee, in terms of renovating houses for energy efficiency, that could extend to town buildings. There's, it's definitely under their umbrella more so, I think, than ours. But I think, we'd have a lot to offer in support and potential collaboration of projects. So
Sure.
I'm
Well,
all
and they've
open
also
to it.
invited the Planning Commission as well.
Yeah, for sure. That's
something like-
integral.
Right. Something like river corridors or conservation of land for carbon sequestration could fall under, so that could work together there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Okay, great, cool, thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot, Jono. I was like, climate change. Didn't Jono like get all excited about that like a year ago or something?
Yeah,
So
good
I knew
memory.
you wanted to work with energy, and then I saw this and I thought this is a Jono thing. So cool, thank you.
Hey,
But I want to talk to
as
you
I
officially.
as I might step out of the meeting shortly, I think it was fairly self-explanatory. I felt like the list that I generated after Helen and I had a chance to visit, hopefully was pretty straightforward. So I don't know if it's necessary to go over that. I think the main question that Helen and I might have had was, what is our goal? Is it to work on these, to prune these trees for apple production, to continue what had been ongoing, as Zaley was looking into the past of what had been started through the Helen or the Edith Stock Trust and so on. So that really is, are we green lighting to continue on, or are we sort of discussing it? That's where I think we wanted to get back to the committee with our observations as to what we might recommend and how to move forward.
Okay.
Ellen, feel free to jump in there if you want to
Do
add
you
some
want
more
to
to
talk
that.
about, do we want to just jump to item, I hate to jump around too much, but do you want to jump to item L while we have Jono here? Or do we already have a sense that we know what we're talking about with that?
Well, I've never known what the Edith Stock Fund.
Oh, I'm
is
so
to be used for.
sorry. Oh, we could have filled
So,
it.
yes, I think some updating or just informing us. And therefore, is pruning the apple trees what this fund, why were the trees planted? What are we trying to maximize?
Oh, I thought you were in the meeting with the lawyer, right?
Yeah.
Oh, anyhow, it's important. Okay,
Would you
cool.
like to-
Yes, we can fill you in on that. The Edith Stock Trust, Edith Stock was a citizen of Bristol, and my understanding is that her estate was a large percent of her estate, or a large endowment was created on behalf of the birds of Bristol. And so there have been a lot of like the birdhouses at Sycamore Park, and some properties have been purchased and improved with the hope that it could benefit the birds of Bristol. There is very little money left in that trust. And so the lawyer, whose name escapes me right now, dissolved the trust and put the very small remainder, I mean like a couple $1,000s, into our under our purview to help with no strings, but hopefully to help the birds of Bristol. One of the projects of that trust was that they had planted those apple trees at Sycamore Park to help birds. And now we're sort of are the proud owner of these trees and don't quite know what to do with them, or what we should do with them. And so that's sort of been something we've been throwing around all winter is, what about those darn apple trees? Do they help the birds? Do they help the ecosystem that maybe then helps the birds? Even if they don't help the birds at some state, should we keep them going while we figure out what to do with them? And that's where we're at, I think, mostly. Anyone else want to throw in there?
So it seems like the trust was paying someone to service the trees every year. So our
Yes.
question, do we continue paying for that service, or do we take on some of the work ourselves? The only work currently would be the pruning that I can think of. They don't, apple trees do pretty well. They don't necessarily need a ton of attention or fertilization. They don't need extra water. They're well established at this point, except the one that fell over that Alex fixed. But so, I think he also treated them so that the apples didn't have as many bugs, but I don't know that that helps the birds.
Right.
So I would
Yeah.
argue that could be something that could be cut from the expense.
I agree.
And if it's not that big of a deal for us to currently do the trimming, which right now we're making up for like 3 years, so it's a lot more trimming than it would be yearly. Yearly, it could probably be part of the workday. I would argue that for now, we could probably take it on. But I don't know what other people think.
I agree.
Yeah, I
It seems
like that.
there's better things we could do for the birds of Bristol than pay somebody to prune those.
Then spraying apple trees.
Yeah.
Right. That
Yeah.
feels to me counterproductive.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was even thinking, what could we do with the apples themselves? Is that something the birds want? Is there something that we could do for the town, like a apple cider press day for a camp group? For the
Well,
rec
let's take it
center?
one.
I don't even know.
Let's take it one
right?
step at a time and
Oh
see.
no, I know. I'm gonna say this Edith Stock
Yeah.
thing is kind of a like, what do you even do with the money? What do you
Right.
do with these apples? And so I don't know. So I think I think we agree we'll take care of the apples ourselves by the pruning this year. And we'll just have to continue having these discussions and keep wondering until someone figures out what we're gonna do with this. Or what
So
should
are
we
there
do with the
funds
best-
still available?
Yes,
Yeah, I think it's
they're held in the town.
the town has it, yeah.
And George Vince officially transferred stewardship of those funds to the Bristol Conservation Commission.
Yeah, he said that at some point renewing the trust every year was just draining what little money was left, and it wasn't worth it anymore. And so
Right.
we could best utilize that money this way.
So at some point, are we going to talk about what this money should be spent on?
Yeah,
are
I
we
mean,
gonna
it's
do
been
that?
on the agenda every time, and no one ever knows what to do. So it just keeps getting kicked. The can keeps kicking, and we never talk about what to do with the money or the apple
Well,
trees.
how about if we plant native plants, trees, shrubs, whatever, that we know are attractive to birds? Done. I
Well,
mean,
let me step in just a moment here. We are under no obligation on an annual basis or otherwise. Those funds are available. So one one other pot of money that we are needing to expend is the $300 or so that we get for the town. So that should probably be first on our list, but as part of a calendar item and so on, and that would be my answer. And the other thing that I just want to say is that Valerie sent an email out as to my term, and I think Zaley and Alex, based on probably kind
Is
of.
this our annual
jumping in-
meeting? This
What?
isn't our annual meeting, is it?
No.
Oh,
It's
that's
just, she
next month.
said, if I was interested in renewing for a 3-year term, which I am, but I wanted to put it out to the commission, if for any reason there was some other, the floodgates open and the membership was, so I'm happy to
It's
renew,
yours
but
if you want it. Please renew it. Is it? I thought that was April. Is it March?
it is.
Yeah,
She just
wrote
was
us-
giving us a heads up. So I'm
Oh,
planning to
okay.
do it. I just wanted to be public about to the commission. If that was, good to do, then I will do it.
Yeah. Please renew. It's your seat. It's your seat if you want it. Go for it. No one else wants
All right.
it, so please.
Wonderful.
renew it.
But might I suggest that we put a little more detail in the agenda for next month or even the month
Yes.
following to have a discussion about how to utilize the Edith stock monies.
That sounds great. Okay, so annual meeting, I believe is April. I'll check with Valerie. And then I'll also put on there Edith stock, and I'll maybe make it more specific, like how to spend money or like
Brainstorm.
yeah. Brainstorm. Yeah.
Management of funds or something like that. And in the meantime, we can all be thinking
Yeah.
about how we might want to spend those funds.
That sounds great. That sounds like a great idea. Let's all do that. Thank you, Kristen. Okay. So I think this is getting a little bit unwieldy in terms of our agenda. So let's move back and focus, and we can just go through some of these quickly, hopefully, and get on track in case we've lost the thread here. So Parks update is where this all started with Sycamore Park. Have we covered everything you wanted to cover with a Parks update, which then got interrupted? I believe we did. Okay, good.
There's Eagle Park.
Wait, isn't that going to be under the management plan, or do you have something about Eagle Park separate
I have something about Eagle Park separate.
from the management plan? Okay, go. Yes. Good. Sorry, that's got.
If Alex was Alex done reporting out on the?
I'm sorry, Helen. This is getting complicated. Okay.
That's fine. I
All
just,
good, go ahead.
Okay. So at Eagle Park, as you know, the universal fishing platform is in disrepair, and we're waiting to get FEMA approval of 2 different scopes of work. One scope of work is to replace everything in kind, basically sorry, my brain stops working after about 6 p.m. Redo make the repairs to restore the fishing platform to how it was before the October 2019 storm. And then there's a separate scope of work and budget for mitigation design to improve on the design and make the structure more flood resilient. So there are 2 separate scopes of work and costs being reviewed by FEMA. One element of the repair in kind estimate involves dock doctors redesigning the brackets that fix the platform to the 2 boulders that it's pinched between. And there's a select board item coming up on Monday night, the 14th, to ask the select board if they will approve of dock doctors' estimate in order to begin the design process for those replacement brackets, so that we can hopefully sequence all the work to happen this summer and get that platform repaired and back in action. So I wanted to let this commission know that the select board is meeting on that item on Monday night, as well as reviewing our Eagle Park management plan. I'm sorry, our Memorial Park management plan. And anyone that would like to be a part of that discussion should come to the select board meeting. Valerie asked that I bring it up at tonight's Conservation Commission meeting in case members here wanted to weigh in on whether we should approve or recommend that the select board approve signing the doctor's contract to begin the design process for the bracket redesign. Complicated mess, but I said that I would bring it up at tonight's meeting to
Great.
hear feedback.
So what's our feedback? Or do people approve of the
And
bracket?
I could share that doctor's estimate if anyone is interested to see it.
Sure, yeah.
Be really quick here. Oh, disabled screen sharing.
Oh, sorry, on my own Zoom, everyone can share, but this is the town one, and so sorry. Do I click on participate?
Kristen, is this doctor's job separate from what we're asking for FEMA approval?
It's one of the items within the scope of work that FEMA is now reviewing. And so there's a little bit of risk, right? Because the town could be initiating this element of the work before we've heard from FEMA whether they will reimburse their 75%, and then the state reimburses 12%, and the town is on the hook for the remaining 12%. But everything that we're hearing from FEMA representatives are that they will likely approve of the reimbursement of in-kind expenses. They're still pending a decision on the mitigation scope of work, the improvements that would make the platform more resilient. Yeah, hopefully that answered your question.
Mhm.
I think you
And
should be able to share now.
okay, thanks. So this is the doctor's estimate. They need a two-man crew to remove the decking and level the platform on some temporary legs going down to the riverbed. Once the platform is level, they take measurements to fabricate new support brackets. Then they go back to the shop and they design the new support brackets. And then they come back in phase 2 and drill a hole in the boulders and install the new support brackets. And this is their estimate. And they won't begin the design until the town has signed this contract and issued the 15% of this total. So that's the item that will be up for discussion with the select board on Monday night's meeting. Should the town proceed and sign this contract with doctors, be on the hook for about $900, which is 15% of this, and initiate that design process so that we can get this project in the queue of doctor's 2022 work to happen this summer or early fall.
And
And
I
this money,
assume,
oh,
I assume that the engineer that presented on this platform is supporting that they think that this is the proper.
Correct. They
Got it.
recommend that sequencing, and Roy will be at the select board meeting virtually on Monday to answer any questions that they might have.
Great, great. Okay.
Yeah, it
So-
seems like the risk of what the town may be on the hook for is not great enough to outweigh getting it in queue and so on.
and it would be paid for by the Conservation Reserve Fund anyway, right?
Well, they're
Because it's
So
like a
the-
physical piece
Well,
of,
so if presuming that FEMA reimburses, FEMA will reimburse 75% of the cost. The state will reimburse 12.5% of the cost. The remaining 12.5% will be on the town to come up with. And previous discussions have been that the Bristol Conservation Reserve Fund could be a source for that match.
Yeah. Okay, well, do people want to endorse signing this contract or not? Where are the thoughts of the?
And I don't know that we
Need like
have
a
a,
motion?
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we could do a motion. I don't know that the select board obviously is in charge of making the decision. We would just maybe, we could make a motion that we support the idea of proceeding to execute this contract. iPad has raised their hand.
I don't, it just did that on its own.
News to me.
Oh,
It like told us that we were about to raise our hand and then,
oh, wow. Creepy.
and then
Okay.
did.
Feels pretty strongly about the motion.
Yeah.
There you go. The iPad's in favor. The iPad's in favor. Okay, so Krista made a motion. Does
Yeah,
anyone want a
you could-
second? Did
you
you
could
make
say
that
I made it.
motion or would you
Sure.
just decide? Okay, she made that motion. Helen, did you get that motion down?
I think so. Yeah,
The spirit of the motion. Is there a second for the motion?
I
I'll
second it. Beat ya.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries.
I'll let, I can let Valerie know that we weighed in. Thanks for taking the time on that, Eileen.
Yeah, totally. Thank you for all the time you've put onto this. This is great. And then is that all the park updates we have? For the,
So
oh,
I have a question. So you said that at the select board meeting, they will also discuss the management plan for Memorial Park?
yes.
And
Correct.
is that
is also on.
something that they just say A or nay, we like this idea? I don't,
I have no idea,
Oh.
because we've
That's
only
item
ever,
E, by the way. Let's move to E, Memorial Park Management Plan, Select Board, March 14th. Kristen, you have the floor.
Memorial Park Management Plan.
oh, I
Okay.
see, yeah. Got it.
Yeah, in my recollection, we've only ever supplied one management plan to the select board, and that was Sycamore Park. And that was 2000 and, years ago. So I imagine they will have a short discussion about it, and we left some questions in there for them. Things like, could the demolition of the two-holer outhouse at that property be a training example for the fire department, things like that. So there'll be a short discussion, I'm sure.
So that will be happening then. There's the select board meeting, has 2 different conservation commission agenda items for Monday. So to keep in mind if people are available.
Yeah.
And so Kristen, you're gonna go, I'll try to go. Is anyone else gonna go? Please think about
Okay.
trying to go. I know the Smiths are pretty busy, but anyone who's interested, it would be helpful. Okay, and then town plan, start next management plan for Eagle Park, item F. Should we discuss this? Kristen, do you have tasks for us? We like to end at 7:30. It is very close that we had a lot going on today. Should we kick this to the next meeting? What are your
I was going to
thoughts?
suggest we could table the discussion of the Eagle Park management plan until next meeting. It's not a rush. There's some items in there I asked for example, does anyone want to do a bird count at that and the tree count at that park? And we could add that information in there. So be thinking about that in the next month.
I think too, it'll be nice to see what happens with the
With the first plan.
The
Yeah.
first plan and see, yeah, so that'll be a learning experience for us too. It'll be nice.
Yep.
Great, so we'll table that for now. Thank you. Creating a calendar, G of tasks. What if we had like a Google Doc and we just sort of, if you thought of a task that needed to go on that calendar, we could enter it and then we could try to make a list of things we need to do each year. And then we could actually formalize that at our next meeting. Would that be a good way to get something moving on this, but also not spend time on it right now? Do you agree with that? Okay, great. So where's my to-do list? I'll set up that Google Doc. Great, and things like, Greenup Day is every year. We have to pay the VACC every year. We do an Eagle Work Day, that kind of thing. Just sort of make a list of those sorts of things as we think of them and try to put them in some kind of monthly order or something, and just so we have it as a resource going forward. Okay, great. Thank you for letting that go quickly. H, operating budget. What are some best uses of this? So we have somewhere in the ballpark of $200, $250, something like that. That's unaccounted for. We have about $300, and then we do 50 to the Vermont Association of Conservation Commissions every year for membership. And so that's not a lot of money. I was thinking maybe one of the first things we should think about is things that are needed for Sycamore, since we have a day planned for that. Or if we need any money to do anything for Eagle Park, we also do a cleanup day there as well. So if anyone has ideas for those two, we do need to disperse those. We need to disperse the funds. We need to pay
Suspense.
the spends. Thank you. We need to get the money. We need to spend the money by June 30th, but we can get reimbursed after, as long as the receipt says June 30th on it. So we have time. But we just we need something to think about. We don't think about this, and if we don't spend the money, they won't give us the money. So let's use that.
So I know that the fencing around the Pollinator Gardens needs repair. Are there separate funds for that? I mean, it's some sort of metal rebar-ish things, and I think better fencing for one of the gardens. One of them is quite weak. I don't know how much that's talking. $100 max.
Yeah, and also the, Alex mentioned the cork board for the kiosk. Maybe we could spend our operating budget on that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that goes for, but yeah, either like the square panels that you just kind of like push together, or the rollout kind. But yeah, that kiosk is due for, new versions.
Refreshing, yeah.
Okay, how about this? I'll talk to Valerie and I'll find out how much money we have, and also how much money we pay this Conservation Commission membership. Alex, could you come up with, Rec Department Alex, could you come up with like a list of what this would cost? Like a little, just line item proposal budget of like what we need to spend to fix the items you discussed? Would
Yeah,
that be
definitely.
doable? Okay, cool. And is there anything for Eagle? Just we'd get wood chips every year, but we usually
Those are
able to get
usually
those
donated usually.
Yeah,
from
okay,
town.
great. Otherwise, we can haul the old ones from Sycamore to Eagle.
Yeah.
It'd be a mess. Okay, great. So we'll get some more details for that for the next time. That's item I, which is the climate change forum, which I believe we completed that discussion. Yes, Nancy's like, yes, we're done with that. And then J, illegal dumping. Alex, anything? Great, tabled. Thank you for that. Website, I updated the year's annual report. That's all that happened. Edith Stock Trust, L, we touched on already. Anything else about apples we want to update? And then we already talked about having a brainstorm next time about what to do with that money.
Yep.
I can find out how much money that is too, if you want.
Yep.
Okay, great. That is tree planting committee. Alex.
Yeah, only update is that our first meeting, like initial brainstorm meeting, is next Thursday.
Okay.
So in April, I'll have a more solid update and more info to share.
Great, that sounds great. Tree planting committee. ARPA, Helen.
Oh, God, I'm taking minutes and you want me to report on ARPA, just $1 million.
Just say we had our first meeting, we're off to a great start, and then
Yes,
move on.
that's exactly what it is. We've met once and we are just chilling. Talking about how to solicit public's opinion about how to spend these funds, how to talk to nonprofits, town offices, schools, businesses about what they perceive as needs. And then we will start prioritizing and budgets, creating budgets and submitting something to someone. But no, we've just met and sort of talked about what our responsibilities are. And we will meet monthly, first Mondays of the month on Zoom. So I should have more information by the next meeting.
That sounds great. Thank you. I have someone who doesn't want to go to bed in the background here.
Yeah, me too. Let's just,
ARPA committee, and then the last thing is Greenup Day. It is May 7th, 22 this year. I've submitted paperwork. I am waiting for bags, waiting for items. I have nothing to report, but we'll be in full swing, and we'll talk about it at our April meeting. And that will be the last meeting before it actually happens, I think. So we may have, we'll talk volunteers and timing if anyone's interested in that kind of thing. All right, sound good. And we have the only planned event then that we're going to have is that apple tree thing. And I'll send out an email starting of the ball rolling on that with Jono.
great.
And the next thing will be April 12th.
April 12th.
Sorry, yeah, well, we have a lot of public comment, it sort of derails our timeline. So hopefully we'll be able to stick to a schedule in the future. Great. Well, thank you very much. to
Haley,
everyone.
we're taking minutes from here on out. That was painful. I have a lot of work to do.
Those numbers you want to start out on.
Man, all righty. Good.
Well,
Thank you,
for-
Helen.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we'll be on Zoom next meeting, and then hopefully we'll be outside for May.
Sounds good.
Great. All right. So do we have a motion?
Oh, I'll make a motion. I'll make a
Made a motion
motion.
so fast. She wants out. Anyone else second that?
I'll second.
You seconded. All right. Thank you, everyone. See you next month.
See you soon.
Thanks.